If there is something I truly enjoy doing every December, is to buy a handful of Italian developed games. You see, since 2021, in the first week of the month, there's been a sale on Steam dedicated to games from my home nation, an initiative promoted by IIDEA, the Italian Interactive Digital Entertainment Association, called Games in Italy. As I addressed in the channel multiple times, Italy is not known for developing many video games, so I made it my mission to support and promote mostly unknown titles that come from here. Last year I reviewed a batch of 5 different games you now see on screen, giving most of them my Fox seal of approval, and today we're doing the same for another group of very interesting titles. The games we'll be looking at today are, in order of which I played them, Soulstice, a dark fantasy hack-and-slash title, Nantucket, a Moby Dick-inspired strategy adventure, Riverdale Stronger Together, a colorful co-op platformer, and Altheia The Wrath of Aferi, an action-adventure similar to old-fashioned PS2-era games. I played all these titles on PC, but some are also available on other consoles. I can tell you in advance that I enjoyed all these 4 games in different ways, and I praise all the fellow countrymen and women that have worked hard to bring these projects to completion. But let us take a closer look at each and every one of them. Roll the intro. First one on the list is Soulstice, a hack-and-slash game made by Reply Game Studios, headquartered in Milan. If this team's name sounds familiar, it is because they are the same developers who made Jodiver's Lone Wolf Remastered, a title I highly praised in the previous video, probably my favorite out of that batch of Italian games. For their new IP, Reply decided to create an original new world, not based nor linked on Jodiver's novels. A world still dark fantasy, but one that gives a more Dark Souls vibe. From a gameplay perspective, Soulstice aligns quite closely to Platinum games such as Bayonetta, and hack-and-slash full of different combos to learn and enemies to take down. The protagonist of the adventure is actually a duo of sisters, Briar and Lute, one an Ashen Knight and the other her Shade companion, together forming what is known in-game as a Chimera. The game's story starts cryptic and mysterious, with little information to go by, but more about their backstories and their objectives is revealed throughout the adventure. The incipit of the around 20-hour story mode is that Briar and Lute are sent to the sacred city of Ilden, capital destroyed by the corruption and chaos caused by an unknown source, stormed by various monsters. The whole game in fact takes place across town, starting from the docks, to the city walls, to the various city's districts, all the way to the central cathedral. While the lore of the world itself may feel a bit generic, similar to many games that came before, I did enjoy the storytelling behind it, how the exposition of the world was diluted across the game rather than being explained in depth in just one cutscene. The characters are few but intriguing, each playing their key part in the narrative. From Donovan the Shateless to Leighton the Observer, each receives the right amount of attention. As explained in a previous video, I'm a huge fan of games set in a single location. Rather than to traverse an unnamed continent, the choice of writing a story that starts and ends within the same metropolis is something I truly cherish, and while some assets were used a little bit too often, I did enjoy my long journey across Idle, quite a scenic location, even during its destruction. The art direction is overall well crafted, the atmosphere is spot on, and to think this game was made by a fairly small indie studio is quite something. I'm not too big of a fan of the character design though, perhaps a little bit too cartoony, contrasting with the more dusky surroundings, but the ensemble works very well. But what about the gameplay, you say? After all, as a hack-and-slash, this is by definition its biggest priority. The short answer to that question would be, it works and is super fun to play, however. The long answer, well, the rest of that however. Let me set the record straight, I'm not an expert of the genre, I only played Killer is Dead, the first Bayonetta and Nier Automata, and this latter one is more of a JRPG than a pure action title. I did enjoy Grasshopper's production somewhat, but I barely finished Platinum's first Bayonetta, as described in my Wii U game tier list. Despite my mixed feelings with hack-and-slash, I did finish Soulstice at a hard difficulty, learning and getting better with every level. I would lie if I said I did not have fun playing the 25 levels within the game. I found a well-balanced challenge that kept me on guard, but never hopeless. Is this the peak of the genre? Probably not. The game does not innovate that much, and it definitely can become repetitive, but as stated, I did complete the last level with the same motivation as I completed the first. What I can objectively criticize about the design of the title is its camera, fixed in various angles across exploration phases of the adventure. Myself, like many others, had a hard time getting used to this rigid setup, where taking one step forward could mean having the camera turned 180 degrees. Granted, since the game is not open world, and not even open map, there is a reason why such a setup was coded, but this excuse does not make it less frustrating, especially when the world is filled with invisible walls, something truly unexplainable. Nevertheless, for a AA production that is €40 at full price, and more often than not discounted down to €4 during sales, I consider Soulstice as a fair alternative game worth checking out. The storytelling is great, the world is intriguing, and the gameplay is, in general, fun to play, and this comes from someone who does not fancy the genre that much. If you are up for the challenge and can close an eye on some issues, you could find a worthy experience. Next up in this Italian game list is Nantucket, an intriguing title made by the properly named Pirates Games, developed in Aversa, near Naples. The game is based on the famous Herman Melville's novel Moby Dick, and it is set in the North Atlantic, starting of course by where else than Nantucket Island, Massachusetts. The strategy game, yes, this is a strategy game, has the protagonist Ismael sailing the seven seas in search of the famous white whale, encountering all sorts of legendary creatures to hunt, ports to land to, and all sorts of side quests to do. The game is quite flexible when it comes to deciding what to do between a main quest and the other, with all various side activities to complete. Most of the game revolves around hunting marine animals such as narwhals, sharks, and of course whales, and from the hunt to profit to grow your ship ever so bigger to achieve ever greater profits. I think the formula is quite self-explanatory, but this is not to say that it is easy to master. Every captain needs a crew, and every port has its fair share of buccaneers that are up to the challenge, but do be careful, permadeath is enabled. You might think that you can manage a long run without casualties, but many are events within the game that will force the player to take hard decisions, not to mention pure bad luck. As the wonderful newspapers across the world reminds us, these are the 1820s. On this note, managing the crew is an aspect that works quite well in game. Every person has good or bad habits, and sometimes crew members even give side quests that follow their short stories. It is sad when they are lost during combat or force majeure, but this mechanic is effective to keep the player sharp during fights, since even the smallest slip-up can cause effects on the story. The fights themselves, either against the wildlife or against pirates, are turn-based, with dice deciding what moves the player can perform. Not gonna lie, at first I found this system quite frustrating, since it is heavily reliant on luck, but after expanding the crew and their skills, the strategy elements started to come in play more and more, making the various encounters exciting. I'm not too sure if this title was first developed as a board game and then later translated into a video game, but if that's indeed the case, I can say that this transition worked quite well. I truly find the looping formula engaging, addicting even, so much so that I did complete the main story in just about 3 days. There is a DLC that allows the player to only focus on growing their wealth without worrying about the main story, one that also slightly expands the map to include the Indian Ocean, but even the base game allows the player to do just that if they so desire. Speaking of world size, while the map is of course big since it includes the whole world, the ports explored are few and far in between, based mostly on the book. I can understand why the developers wanted to limit them in one per continent, but it does feel very strange that not all cities even have quests available, making it a bit impractical to traverse the whole ocean just to get a reward. The hunting areas are quite numerous, but I wish that at least in the DLC there would be more cities around the world to explore and come back to. Also, in general the gameplay formula is bound to become somewhat repetitive after the second round. That is why I suggest you to play with the game's hard mode enabled. One thing that does not age is the game's sense of humor. The events that can happen within a run are always a good laugh. One time I had a crew member killed by his wife lover because he came back home sooner than expected. Another time a sailor got syphilis from spending the night with someone special. On another occasion, the helmsman and the chief were fooling around the deck, and by letting them play, one accidentally fell from the ship and drowned. You get the gist. The game is yes serious in some occasions, but also knows how to be goofy in some other instances. Overall, I would say Nantucket is a very splendid experience, one that its price is more than fair and one I will come back to from time to time, especially in its free roaming mode present in the DLC. The third title I wish to bring to the channel today is Rivertale Stronger Together, a co-op platformer developed by Kidonian Studio, dev team located in Catania, Sicily. The title can be played in single player, but it is best enjoyed in two. Hence, I played it with whom else but my good old friend Dandote, who also gifted me the game. The couch co-op adventure is very many instances of games like It Takes Two or Split Fiction, even if it's of course much smaller in scope. The two playable characters are Purple, the purple cat I played with, and Finn, the goldfish Dandote selected. The main gimmick is that the cat cannot swim, nor the fish can stay away from the water. The only way to move forwards is by, you guessed it, working together. The various levels spread around this 8-hour-long adventure are actually more diverse than Dandote and I were anticipating. There are various different mechanics and ways to interact despite the simple and intuitive controls of the game. Going upstream, there are many different levels to explore, with each having their own collectibles, unique enemies and aesthetics. This latter one being perhaps the strongest point of the game. As you see on screen, the title is filled with charming colorful environments, with equally charming protagonists that with no words express quite a lot. To put it simply, Rivertales is quite cute and aesthetically pleasing, standing out among similar indie tales. Italy may not be famous for its technical portfolio, at least not in the recent decades, but it is known for its arts. Knowing that a talented team of artists from Sicily can achieve this beauty with few resources makes me hopeful for great projects in the future. Gameplay-wise, the title encapsulates the fun of cooperating with a friend. Levels are not the hardest, but it do require concentration and coordination between players, with some sections of the game being particularly tricky to navigate. There is no striking difference when playing with either animal, since both can move around, jump, and pull and push items, but I did notice some level design distinctions. While playing with the cat, there is a greater attention to platforming, since the water floor is untouchable. Dandos meanwhile experience more timing and movement based challenges, facing different types of obstacles usually linked with good timing. This entails that the game is replayable by inverting the roles, something quite positive for a game of this genre. Now, it has to be said that at times the controls are a bit janky. There are many checkpoints across the map, so it is never too frustrating, but more than once we had a game over due to imperfect game geometry. You need to be a little patient with it. Despite some technical issues, the game is fun to play from start to finish, no denying that. Unfortunately, there is no Friends Pass feature, hence by playing via Steam Remote Play, aka streaming, we did have some lag in more crowded areas, but it's not the developer's fault, the game is meant to be played on the same couch. There is not much about the story to comment on, the game's plot is minimal since its focus is elsewhere. Just like the aesthetics, it is cute, charming and cartoony, making it enjoyable for a great audience. A game that can be played with everyone in the family, from a younger sibling to a casual gamer friend. Overall, Rivertales Stronger Together is a fun game to play with a pal. It might be as polished as a AAA production, but as a quote-unquote budget alternative, I believe the game delivers a smaller but still enjoyable experience. But as I stated countless times in the video, I'm not the only one who played the game. Dandots, what did you think about Rivertales?
Hey, how did I always end up in your videos? Well, since I'm here, I guess I'll tell you my 2 cents. I'm not really known for my ability in platforming, so I really appreciate that the style of gameplay is quite different between the fish and the cat. Yeah, the last level were a bit less polished than the first ones, but still enjoyable. Well, my work here is done. I'm going back to Pisa. See ya all!
Grazie mille Dandosword for your input. If you cannot trust me, you can definitely trust him. Anyhow, let us move to the last Italian-made indie game of this video. Last but not least by any means is Altheia The Wrath of Aferi, a game made by Marcel Games, studio made up by 2 brothers from Lucca, Tuscany. The game can be described as an action-adventure similar in style to the PS2 GameCube titles like Ratchet & Clank, Zelda Twilight Princess and my beloved Jackie Adventures, a game that wishes to fit in that retro library despite it being released 6 months ago. This is not a negative by any means, in fact, quite the opposite. I do enjoy the old Zelda formula from going to dungeon, solving puzzles to move on, getting new gadgets, and dueling enemies and bosses with a sword and a bow. It is nice to see a modern game played more simply from time to time. But let us not get ahead of ourselves. What is Altheia even about? The incipit of the plot is that corruption is consuming Atarasia, the magical land where Lily lives in. The protagonist is an upcoming guardian that unfortunately was left behind to face a hopeless fight, but together with her companion, Sari the young monk, they try the impossible, to save the world from, well, the Wrath of Aferi. It's in the title. Not gonna lie, the premise sounds a bit corny, and the first 2 hours did not intrigue me that much. I found the characters to be whiny and not that interesting, they just did not click with me. However, as time went on, I grew more attached to them and the overarching story does have its strong moments. The 12-hour adventure went from rough to enjoyable, again with more surprises than I anticipated. Differently from the other 3 games, the story here feels more personal, a passion that is human and linked with its developers, something I truly praise and respect. More work could have been placed on the dubbing and some dialogues could have been written better, but again, for a small production like this, I cannot complain. The gameplay is a bit more vivid, with a combat system that is simple but flashy. Between one fight and the other, great focus is placed on the environment puzzles, scattered both across the overworld as well as the dungeons. There are various temples that recall retro Zelda games, about 4 or 5 major ones that take a while to complete. The enigmas themselves are not too hard to figure out, but they do take some noggin. One small annoying note I must share, however, is that in 2 different occasions, due to bugs, I was not able to proceed further, leaving me confused and stranded. It is a bit annoying searching online for the answer to a quest I spent time on just to learn that a random lever can indeed be pulled if I reload the game. Despite these technical issues, of which the game is sometimes victim of, when the formula works, it works well. I'm sure that especially as a kid, I would have adored this game. It fits so well in the games I enjoyed 15 years back. As an adult, I have a keener eye, but few modern games transmit that video game magic like this one. Speaking of, I did not mention it yet, but the artistic compartment of this entry is quite something. Everything is painted with bright brushstrokes, similar to Breath of the Wild, giving the game its own personality. The developers say that they were inspired by Studio Ghibli movies, and across the game, I can clearly see it. The game is linear and not really free roam, but the ravishing design makes the world feel alive, feel real in its own reality. The sole element of which I'm not too fond of are the faces, but they do blend in well within the world. Altheia The Wrath of Aferi is far from perfect, but it was joyful playing it. This title definitely flies under the radar when compared to the others, but it does deserve praise for being itself, for being enjoyable, beautiful, and perhaps a tad frustrating. Keep an eye on it if you seek those retro vibes. Together with last year's edition of this video, plus some more individual games reviewed in the past, I think we're shaping up a solid Italian video game library here. Granted, these games are not masterpieces by any stretch of the imagination, but every game does bring their own uniqueness to the gaming scene. Soulstice is a solid hack and slash with her own story to tell. Nantucket is a novel strategy game that can be played for countless hours. Rival Tales is a fun, colorful co-op adventure that made us laugh. And Altheia is a charming action adventure that reminded me of my beloved PS2 era games. Italian game development might not be on par with other European countries like France, Sweden and Poland, but these games showcase that there is a growing industry of talented digital artisans ready to showcase the world their creations. I'm just giving them a voice on the English-speaking part of the internet. If you made it this far, I wanted to thank you one-to-many Italian Games Times for watching today's video. This is the second time I review various Italian-made games. Do you like this format? I truly love shining some light on smaller games made in Italy, and honestly, I would not mind for this to become a yearly tradition. I wish you all a wonderful day. And until next time, arrivederci.